Hello and welcome back to Solomon's Cave. In the previous videos, we have seen the shaping up of the greatest debate of all time between Parmenides and Heraclitus. Parmenides was famous for saying, "Whatever is, and change is impossible," while Heraclitus said that change is everything. Or to put it differently, everything is being, or everything is becoming. Then in the last video, we saw Empedocles, a rather strange philosopher to be honest, trying to unify the philosophies of Parmenides and Heraclitus, and so solve this greatest debate of all time. Empedocles' answer was that everything was made up of four roots, later called elements, namely earth, water, fire, and air, and that these four roots were constantly being pulled together and apart by the opposing forces of love and strife. At the same time, Anaxagoras, not Anaximander, also not Anaximenes, Anaxagoras was coming up with his own way to see the world and all of reality, while trying to reconcile Parmenides and Heraclitus. So who was Anaxagoras and what did he believe? Anaxagoras was likely born in 500 BC and died at about 428 BC, making his life largely overlap with that of Empedocles, but also with some other major philosophers. He was born in Chalcomene, and he spent his final years in Lampsacus, both on the west coast of Anatolia. But for most of his life he lived in Athens. This makes him the first philosopher to be a famous Athenian. Athens would later, of course, become a breeding ground for philosophy, and the place where Socrates and Plato and even Aristotle spent most of their time philosophizing. While in Athens, he spent a lot of time philosophizing and wrestling with the challenges put forth by Parmenides and Heraclitus. But he also spent his time, seemingly inadvertently, making enemies. Because after 30 years of being a good citizen, he was exiled for impiety. I wonder if this will come up again. The specific belief cited for his impiety is that he believed that the sun was nothing but a glowing hot stone. A stone which, he believed, was about the same size as the Peloponnesian Peninsula. Most historians, however, believe that though he may have believed that, and though it may have gone against the sensibilities of some Athenians, his trial and exile were a farce, and they were basically a political trial intended to hurt Pericles, an important politician in Athens and a personal friend of Anaxagoras. But now, on to his philosophy. What did Anaxagoras believe? Besides believing that the sun is a super hot rock, he also believed that the moon was not a source of light but reflected light, and that the rainbow was essentially clouds plus light. Okay, so the size of the sun was way off, but here we might be getting somewhere. He allegedly also predicted a falling meteorite. Well, if he did, that would be an even greater miracle than Thales accurately predicting a solar eclipse. Predicting a solar eclipse is extremely difficult, especially with ancient technology, but it is not theoretically impossible. But a meteorite falling? No. Well, it's either an extremely lucky guess, or it was a later embellishment of his legacy. Other beliefs of his, he believed that the earth was flat, and the reason that it didn't fall down was because of the compressed air underneath. Wait, hold on. Didn't one of the other pre-Socratics believe the same? Yes, Anaximenes. His belief of a thin, light earth floating on air is very similar. But Anaxagoras goes at least one little step further, because he said that earthquakes were caused by disturbances in the air. Okay. In the previous video in this series, we saw that Empedocles' solution to the philosophical challenges of Parmenides and Heraclitus was a form of pluralism that involved four roots, later called elements, namely water, earth, fire, and air, mixed in with two forces of love and strife. Whether Anaxagoras was aware of Empedocles' teachings or vice versa is unknown. But Anaxagoras also introduced a kind of pluralism. But his pluralism has a much larger number of elements, or as he would call them, seeds. So what is a seed? Modern philosophers and historians have differing opinions about what exactly Anaxagoras meant. But one theory is that a seed can refer to any substance. For example, there can be a water seed, or a paper seed, or a fire seed, a hair seed, or a stone seed. So, why is a drop of water made out of water? Well, because if you zoom in, and you zoom in even more and more, you will find water seeds. Okay, so that explains being. But what happens when something changes? For example, what happens when water changes into ice? Or what happens if hair grows out of skin? Well, says Anaxagoras, what is really present in a drop of water is not just water seeds, but also ice seeds. A drop of water is mostly water seeds, and but a few ice seeds. But when water freezes, it means that there are now more ice seeds than water seeds, and hence we have ice. And when hair grows out of skin, it is originally mostly skin seeds, and only a few hair seeds. But when a hair grows, that just means that the hair seeds are being extracted from the skin to form hairs. Now a clever observer might note that the skin can also produce water in the form of sweat. So, in skin there are mostly skin seeds, but also hair seeds, water seeds, and of course salt seeds, because we're talking about salt water. But since water can also freeze, the water seeds in the skin seeds also have ice seeds in them, so there are also ice seeds in skin. And when you cut your skin, there is blood coming out, so there are also blood seeds in your skin. So, how many types of seeds are mixed within skin or a skin seed? Well, all of them. Every seed is always present everywhere. Every substance has every seed inside of it. It is just that they are extremely small and diluted. Everything is always everywhere. It will just take a lot of mixing, diluting, and filtering to make any one seed manifest itself from any other substance. Okay, so the next question then becomes, how small are seeds? Can you, if you are able to manipulate extremely small things, create a pure substance that only has one type of seed? Or to put it another way, how deep does the rabbit hole go? Where does it stop? It never stops. Anaxagoras would say that seeds are infinitely small and infinitely divisible. Even the smallest imaginable amount of a substance would still have within itself all the different kinds of seed that exist. So there is no smallest size, and you can never get a pure substance made up of just one type of seed without all the others being present there as well. Now if you look back at Zeno's paradoxes and remember that Zeno was a contemporary of Anaxagoras, one could get the impression that the way Zeno phrased some of his paradoxes about the infinitely divisible nature of reality, that they were inspired by this aspect of Anaxagoras' teachings, or perhaps the other way around. Alright, we have seen the extreme diversity within reality, and we know that any one substance manifests itself by having more of one particular seed than all the others. And when a substance changes, it means that there is a change in distribution of the different seeds. However, that is how it changes. But why does it change? Because Parmenides said that change is impossible, so what causes these changes in distribution? You might be tempted to think back to Empedocles and his two forces of love and strife, but that might not actually work here. Because unlike with Empedocles and Anaximenes, things don't change based on how far or close each of the particles are. In Anaxagoras, they change due to a fundamental change in the mixture. Anaxagoras therefore has to come up with his own explanation. and he suggests nous, or mind. It was nous that first began consciously stirring this enormous soup of seeds, separating out areas of higher and lower density of one particular type of seed over here and another particular type of seed over there, and so on and so forth, until the world was created. So we have a notion of all seeds being mixed together in one location, and then suddenly, for no apparent reason, this mind or nous comes in and stirs things up. There seem to be echoes of at least three major ideas here. First of all, one cannot help but be reminded of Empedocles' perfect sphere of love, where his four roots were all perfectly balanced until not mind but strife came in to spread things out and create a universe. So apparently, two philosophers independently had a somewhat similar idea here. Secondly, several people have noticed a kind of similarity with the Big Bang theory. Everything is in one spot. Then it expands, spreads out, and forms the world by clumping things together in different spots. Yeah, that at least kind of sounds like a Big Bang of sorts, though, like Empedocles' evolutionary tale, it is also quite different from what modern astronomers think the Big Bang was like. And thirdly, and this is an observation already made in antiquity, this reminds some people of creation by a deity. Not a creation out of nothing, for according to Anaxagoras the seeds are eternal and cannot be created or destroyed. But then a conscious being, a god, an immaterial supernatural mind with intentions and personality and... hold on. Actually no. Anaxagoras does not follow that line of thought. You might expect that he would have. In fact, even Plato, after learning about Anaxagoras' philosophy, expected that he would be a theist of some sort, where nous or mind would be a god. But that's not what happened. He stops short of ascribing anything in particular to the mind he imagines at the beginning of time, other than that it is different from all the other seeds, and that it is the separating and mixing agent who brought about all of this. So mind is not God or a god. And it is in part because he does not call this mind a god that he is ultimately accused of atheism and exiled from Athens, as mentioned at the beginning. One interesting consequence of this theory of mind and seeds is that he seems to have believed in a theory nowadays called panspermia, namely the theory that life exists elsewhere, or perhaps even everywhere in the universe. Because the seeds of life, or the life seed, or the seeds that are needed for life, are literally spread out everywhere. It is just a matter of mind mixing them in the proper concentrations or configuration, and you have living creatures everywhere. And on that note, we'll end our discussion of Anaxagoras. For our next pre-Socratic philosopher, we will return to Parmenides' school of Elea. We have already seen Zeno as his most prolific student, but now we turn to his other famous pupil, Melissus.